space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission, to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilization, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Greetings, salutations, and welcome to Retrek. I'm Captain Jim, and with me, of course, is Admiral Elliot.
Hi there.
And we're here to talk about the latest episode of Lower Decks, the Spy Humongous. And that's led us down the rabbit hole all the way back to season 1 of TNG and Skin of Evil. So, yeah, the Spy Humongous. Do you reckon this is the end of the Pac-led story arc?
No, I think there's more. I think there's another big bad who's sort of directing the Pac-leds.
Maybe, yeah, because
the Pac-leds aren't clever enough to be sort of ambushing Federation starships all over. And
well, no, so we definitely see in this episode how not clever they are. I mean, I know that's been a joke with the Pac-leds, but we lay it on really thick in this episode. So, yeah, I think there's probably more to come regarding the Pac-leds. I was expecting that it was going to be the season finale, was going to be the culmination.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm thinking there's more to come, because we've still got another 4 episodes.
Yeah,
and it's almost like the Pac-leds are becoming a bit of a season arc as the baddies.
Yeah.
But because they ended season 1 with the Pac-leds, but the Pac-leds aren't clever enough to be the big bads.
No, so yeah, I think maybe we'll get a bit more.
I'm gonna say, because we know that Jeffrey Combs is coming up as a guest star.
Oh yeah.
As that evil computer, and I wonder if that evil computer's pulling the strings.
Ah, yeah, that could be good. I like that. Yeah. So we find out the Pac-led homeworld in this episode is called Pac-led Planet, which I think
it's a Pac-led's planet. It makes sense.
Yeah, definitely, I really like that. So, but again, that's showing the level that we're dealing with when we're talking to the Pac-leds.
Well, we're still on that thing, aren't we? They call all the Federation starships Enterprise, because the first one they encountered was the Enterprise. So it's another Enterprise. They all called Enterprise.
Yeah, and they think all the female captains are called Janeway.
Yeah.
Because presumably she's the most famous female captain in Starfleet, which, yeah, she probably would be after...
after Voyager and coming back. We do know that she got promoted very quickly to an admiral.
Yeah. So the setup for this episode then is we've got one of the Pac-leds that is kind of requesting asylum, or they think that he's requesting asylum, but he's actually a spy, which...
they suss it out fairly quickly, don't they?
Yeah, I like the team of Keishon and Ransom.
Yeah.
I think that's quite a good little double act that they set up in this episode. And then for our main Lower Decks cast, then they're on anomaly consolidation duty, or as Mariner points out, this is really just picking up the rubbish that the senior staff leave around. And it's another one of them great things that Lower Decks has tapped into, where you could watch an episode of Star Trek and go, okay, well, they've got all this weird stuff now, so who goes around and sorts that out after the fact?
Yeah, well, what got me, I found it a bit strange that it's in all the senior officers' quarters, and they just go in and it's just, but it looks like it's being worked on because it's on tables and stuff.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
It seemed really odd.
Yeah, I've not given a lot of thought to what we're
I wonder if it's a Starfleet protocol that they know that senior officers collect stuff and mementos, and they're not meant to with these anomaly there's certain things that they're not meant to collect like this. Because we do see as they're going around collecting it, how dangerous some of these things are.
Yeah, that's true.
If it's more a Starfleet thing that's coming from above, sort of Captain Freeman, it's a duty that comes from above the captain on the ship.
Yeah, I wonder if it's a case of, like you say, everything's stacked up. So maybe it's a case that they don't do this that often. They do it maybe every 6 months, and everybody gets a briefing going out saying, right, all the crap that you've saved up from all the missions and everything, just leave it out on your desk, and we're going to send the ensigns round to get rid of it all this afternoon, sort of thing. So it's a case of sort of like some of the cinemas now, instead of saying take your rubbish with you, they say just leave it on the seat because they come in and clean it up.
Yeah, let's say that. Just leave your rubbish.
Yeah.
And, like, I think that's like, if you look around in the UK, I know around us on the streets there's rubbish bins, but if you go to a bus stop or an airport or the train station, there's no bins anymore because of terrorist threats.
I'm going to say, because dickheads put bombs in them and
yeah,
stuff.
And I wonder if that's something like with the cinemas that...
I think it's just a case of people will leave.
Like a lot of these cinemas are big multinational chains, and I know we haven't had instances of terror attacks in our cinemas, but in America you see it on the news that they have.
Oh, gosh, yes.
So it's maybe sort of like a multinational.
It could be, but yeah. So I think trash duty is a bit of a version of that. It's like, we know you build this stuff up, just leave it out. Someone will come in and get rid of it, and that's what we're seeing here. I like that there's this sort of consortium of red shirts, and obviously we get the little joke about red shirts, like, isn't that the coolest name? And you know, we don't have to point out where that joke's from, but
yeah, like it's obviously a reference that TOS red shirts always stack.
And one of them's that sort of cat thing from it's the original series, the animated series, isn't it?
Yeah, from
the slaver weapon.
That's it, the slaver weapon. And they also mentioned in Picard by Riker that he's been having problems with the Kazinta.
Ah, right, yeah.
And on what's it called? Neo, I can't remember the name of the episode. Nepenthe.
Yeah.
Yeah, he mentions that they've been having problems with them.
Yeah. Oh, well, maybe they're going to become big players. But yeah, it's nice to see them. And I love, it's a lot later on in the episode, but there's a bit where the cat person sort of changes the posture. And they do the posture that we saw them in the animated series, because they were all sort of hunched over. Yeah. And so that's really cool how they do that. And then, yeah, like you say, Keishon straight away suspects that the Packlet is actually a spy.
Well, when he wants to see, he wants to see the force fields, and he wants to see the what's it called? I can never remember its name.
I can't remember what it is he says, but he's wanting to see stuff.
It's the one that they did in Next Generation, where they have the red out from the Buzzard collectors, but they called it something.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean.
And I should know what it's called. The Ruby Force Field or something.
Something like that, yeah. So they do address one of your issues, which was with Keishon only using metaphors from Darmok. And this episode, he throws in some new ones in them, and we have no idea what they mean.
No, he says when they lose the Packlet, he goes, I can't remember the name, but it's this name, his eyes red, which I assume he's crying because they've lost something.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, yeah, it's good that they're throwing that in now, and they are doing ones that we've not heard before. So maybe it was a case of when they first introduced him, they wanted just to make sure that we're all on board with it and we all get it. Maybe we were just a little bit ahead with it, but we've got to remember that not everybody studies Star Trek as closely as we do. So maybe
and like How many years on are we now from this?
Oh, from Darmok. Gosh.
Like we're 30 odd years. It was 30 odd years ago, so there's a whole new generation watching Star Trek.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe they needed a week to go and see it. You know, drop this character in. They've all got Paramount Plus if they're watching it, so they can go and find the episode, and then they'll be up to speed for next time we see him. Rutherford gets inflated by one of the artifacts, and this reminds me of. Do you remember in Live and Let Die where they kill Mr. Big, Yaphet Kotto
with
at the end?
With the bullet?
Yeah, with the...
As the compressed air bullet.
Yeah, compressed air bullet for sharks. And he inflates and everything. It reminded me a little bit of that and a little bit of Chris Pine's Kirk with his big hands in...
Yeah, where they blow up. Well, the same, like the anomalies from the weird planet where everything... evolved weirdly.
Yeah, just everything evolved strangely on this planet, so that's where it's from.
I do like this with Lower Decks, like Next Gen and a lot of other Star Trek. They can get very complicated with the science and all that and explaining things, and Lower Decks just goes strange energies, weird evolution, and I quite like that. It's relatable.
Yeah, I do.
They're not trying to give convoluted explanations for it. It just, this is what it is.
No, and again, it's taking it to that Lower Decks perspective, isn't it? It's like the captain who discovered it, which is usually Picard in Next Gen, is going to know the proper names for it and everything, and they're going to have briefings and blah, blah, blah. But if you're just one of the people lower down the chain, you won't remember the name of it, but you go, I remember that planet where everything evolved weirdly. That were, so you're not going to know the technical names and everything for it. So there is sort of an in-universe justification for that as well. The red shirts then are going back. There's a lot of trombone innuendos relating to Riker, which this very much feels like this is tapping into fan culture, isn't it? Like you see jokes about Riker and his trombone and memes and all sorts of stuff. So I
don't think they're not scared, are they, in Lower Decks, to sort of embrace fan culture as well?
No, not at all.
They're not scared to sort of look at the entire Star Trek universe, and that does include a lot what the fans come out with.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, what they're doing with it is they're taking things like you say that fans make jokes about and saying, yeah, the characters in this universe would find that funny as well.
Yeah, it is all right. Like Next Gen was a serious series, but it is okay to poke fun at these people and have fun with it.
Exactly. I mean, it's like I've always said, like everyone treats Riker, like this amazing guy and everything. But if you were an ensign on the Enterprise and Riker were your boss, you would think he was the biggest dickhead that you've ever met. And what Lower Decks is doing is it's
how many Next Gen was before the Me Too culture, but everyone had been Me Too in Riker.
Yeah, that's very true. He'd be in a lot of trouble, wouldn't he? And Captain Kirk back in the day as well. Yes, there would be operation.
But it does just show how, like, only 30 years ago, what was perfectly acceptable, how he carried on and all that, flirting with everyone and all that, was perfectly fine, and it made him a big, strong butch character. But now, it'd be Me Too'd for it.
Oh, no question, Riker would be, absolutely. And just to put it out there, not saying anything about Jonathan Frakes, we're talking about the fictional character of Riker, just in case anybody's lawyers are watching.
Well, Riker was Next Gen's Kirk.
Yes, effectively, yeah. I love when they're taking the pack lead around the ship. They're obviously taking him to see the boring stuff, so that they're trying to keep him occupied but don't show him anything important. but we see that they've got a gift shop in the Cerritos, and I love this idea. I don't know whether it's really a gift shop or whether it's a case that they've made something on the holodeck to keep him entertained. But I really love
they've just gone into an empty room with a replicator.
Yeah. Yes, quite possibly. But I love the idea that a ship has a souvenir shop on it. Because if you were
this is sort of taking the mickey out of Discovery, because on Discovery they all go around with disco t-shirts on.
Oh, yeah, of course they do, yeah.
And that's something that we've never seen in any of the other shows. But now we've got it that they have USS Cerritos t-shirts you can get.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that idea that on a starship you could get a souvenir of your visit kind of thing.
And how many USS Cerritos t-shirts are we going to see when we finally get to go to a convention again? Because you just know people are going to jump on that as merch.
Oh, yeah, everyone will have the Cerritos t-shirt and the Tom Paris plate.
Well, the Tom Paris plate is already a real item.
Yeah, exactly. So, yes, Lower Decks has done a lot for Star Trek merchandising in its short run of episodes. There's a lot of stuff out there that we want now. So then, this subplot with Boimler then, there's a whole thing about they're trying to improve his look, and they do this thing where suddenly he's really sort of buff and...
Yeah, we'll alter your uniform, and it makes him look buffered.
Yeah, I don't think it's the strongest element of the episode, but it does its job, and it has its own arc that it leads to this thing of, you've got to realize, and they kind of did this before with Boimler on the Titan, that he's always the one who has to remind people what we're really here for.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's always the one who says, no, but Starfleet's about this, not about trying to work your way up the ladder.
I did like, actually, at the beginning of this, when we go right back to the beginning of the episode, and Boimler goes off with the red shirts, and Mariner's sort of like, damn, he's found a way out of anomaly collection duty. I wish I'd thought of that.
Yeah, and we see why, because Mariner ends up, everything basically tries to kill her. Every single thing that they come across seems to attack her in some way, which is great. It's good when Boimler sort of practices giving a speech and you see him imagining himself on the Enterprise D bridge. And so we get the animated recreation of that. Yeah. And, we've had this before, like, he's always talking about the Enterprise D, and we know, like, that's his favourite and everything. So it's a really good callback when he does imagine himself as a captain, that he's imagining himself in the TNG era, on the TNG bridge and everything. And he does end up giving what they think's a good speech anyway, when he sort of channels Riker.
Yeah, like, to be fair, he does give a good speech, but these are the red shirts, and we do see this later. That isn't what being in Starfleet is actually about, giving motivational speeches.
No, exactly. And this is the thing. The red shirts are being presented as idiots, effectively. And it's almost like it's a character arc that they do in all sorts of things, where you have the misfit kid wants to fit in with the cool kids, and then he realizes that the cool kids are not as cool as he thought, and that's effective.
He realizes that his actual mates he did hang about with are the real cool kids.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're doing here with Boimler and the red shirts and everything. There's another of these wonderfully surreal moments that Lower Decks seems to drop in, where Tendi accidentally releases the 3 little pigs somehow, and you get the 3 little pigs running around, and it's just one of them. It really appeals to my sense of humor because it's just so weird, and there's no, like, we talk about when we talk about these episodes, and we say, I can see where they got that from, or I can, there's a link to this there, but this is just balmy.
Yeah, there's no excuse for it, is there?
No, it's just weird, but I like it. I like it. Then on the planet, then with the Packleds, we find out it's all about helmets. Or about helmets.
Yeah, we need to discuss a ceasefire. Oh, I haven't got a big enough helmet for that.
Yeah, and you get Captain Freeman getting more and more frustrated with, who's got the bigger helmet? And it seems to turn out that it's just basically whatever title you give yourself, because you get, I'm the king, no, I'm the emperor, I'm the supreme leader, and nobody knows which one of them's in charge. And then
whoever has the biggest helmet. And this is another reason why I don't think the Packleds are doing this on their own. I think someone's pushing their buttons.
But it'd have to be someone with a really big helmet then, wouldn't it, if they respect helmets? It could be Dark Helmet from Spaceballs. That'd be a good project. But then the non-helmet Packleds overthrow them, only to discover that he likes the helmet and puts it on. And
then everyone goes, he's so strong, he's got the biggest helmet.
Yeah. It's great. I love how they've taken this idea of, we've got this species that's essentially just stupid, but they've really run with that. And, if you want to look at it objectively and seriously for a minute, you can go, okay, they are actually developing a culture for them here. We're seeing that they've got orders of succession and orders of magnitude, and they do have some sort of governmental structure, albeit one that's dictated by how big your helmet is. But that's not a million miles away from some of the governments we have in the present day. So,
well, what is it? It's like, if you look at royalty, it's like, I'm the king because I have a crown, this pointy hat.
Exactly. And stuff like how many pips you have on your collar, and I don't mean that in a Star Trek sense, but there was a big thing recently in the British culture where it was all Prince Philip's funeral, and there was a big hoo-ha over which members of the royal family were going to attend in military dress, and it just got absolutely ridiculous because they all wanted to wear military uniforms, but that were of a higher rank than what they actually attained in the military. And the problem with that is that it is illegal to wear a military uniform that you have not attained that rank unless you have express permission from the Queen. So they were all ringing up the Queen going, "Oh, Granny, can I dress as an admiral for my granddad's funeral?" And, I'm not...
Well, like that be like, it's sad with funerals, however you look at it, but they turned it into a cosplay.
They did. This is the thing.
Because if you want to, like, I cosplay more than you do, but we cosplay to pretend to be something we're not, and pretend. And if you're dressing as an admiral and yet you've never held that rank of an admiral, you are cosplaying.
Exactly. And it's, as I said at the time, I said that'd be like me turning up to my granny's funeral in a Star Trek uniform,
Yeah.
And the biggest irony of it all was that Prince Harry, who did hold a rank in the military and did do active service and everything, chose not to attend in military dress. Whereas,
to be fair, Prince Andrew served in the military because he was actually on the front lines in the Falklands War. Prince Charles did serve in the military, but none of them were admirals.
No, that's it, exactly. Harry would have outranked them all if he'd have worn a uniform and they hadn't have pretended that they...
I didn't realise he outranked them all.
Yeah, I think so. I think he got captain or something, whereas the others just did Anyway, I'm happy to be corrected on that. My knowledge of the royal family is not that great, but yes, it does bring to mind cosplay and things like that. So, what we're saying is the Packleds are like the royal family at a funeral. It's all about how you dress.
Yeah.
And then Tendi gets turned into a scorpion, which is a bit weird.
Yeah, she's She's holding another anomaly that does it. In fact, she's been chewed up by that giant slug first, hasn't she, and shut out.
Yeah, she's been...
Which you could understand why that had put someone in a bad mood. I've just been shut out by a giant slug.
And then that's the thing, isn't it? It's like she's angry, so Boimler has to make a laugh to get her to calm down.
I was watching a thing last night about how... with films, how a lot of modern movies don't set up things properly. They'll have a random comment by somebody to explain something in the movie. This is actually set up right at the beginning of the episode. This whole thing where he needs to make a laugh. And right at the beginning of the episode, he trips up with his meal in his hand and face palms into it. And Tandy starts laughing that she can't help it. He just looks so funny.
Right. And then
they've done the setup for how he sort of solves the problem right at the beginning. No one really says anything, but it's there set up, and it's beautiful. It's really well done of Lower Decks to do that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you want to be doing. Like, the problem is if you telegraph something too strongly, it's obvious that that's what you're doing. But if you couch it as a character beat earlier on in the episode, it feels natural, and then when it comes back, the payoff's better. So yeah, you're right. That's very well put together. So yes, he does save her by prattling about and everything. The pack-led spy has, by all implications, gone for a shit in an airlock and accidentally flushed himself out into space. But then when he gets back to the planet, Freeman tricks him into giving up the information.
Yeah, of what the plan is, and it's like we've planted a bomb on Earth, or
and we don't get a follow up to that, so maybe that's gonna be
this is
gonna play into the finale, or
I think there's a lot more to come, and I stick with it that there's someone behind it. And I've gone out on my limb, and I'm saying that I think it might be the Jeffrey Combs evil robot that we've seen in the trailers.
Yep, we'll go with that.
We still haven't got to yet, so
no, we'll stick with that one then for now. That's our official prediction. We'll see if we're right. And then Red Shirt Guy kind of gets his comeuppance, because the thing is, 3 of them end up sort of coming to Boimler's way of thinking, but you get this one who's adamant that that's the right way, and all he's bothered about is being the acting captain. And you get this thing where Ransom just can't even be bothered with it. Like,
well, that's it. He goes, I'd like to nominate myself for the acting captain's position. I'm the only one worthy. And Ransom goes, yeah, whatever. I don't really care. And then he, straight afterwards, in a few steps, he said to Boimler, well done today. That was brilliant, quick thinking, how you dealt with the situation.
And that's it. That's reinforcing the theme of the episode, which is it's not about your rank and your positioning and
it's not about giving speeches.
Yeah, it's not about giving speeches. It's not about who's got the biggest hats. It's about what you actually do. And so Boimler has shown himself to have a lot more worth than this red shirt guy. And that all comes back round because Shax ends up sending him to clean out the airlock. Which, as we know, the Pack-Led's...
the Pack-Led has done something unthinkable in there.
Yeah. And then it all leads to this final scene, which is what centres on what we're going to cover for the second episode, where, first of all, they've got this stone that lets you basically throw your voice to anywhere in the galaxy.
That's very much from Stargate, isn't it? They had them rocks that let them communicate all over.
Yeah, it is actually. And this is one of those... It's one of those bits of technology where once you've made this exist, it causes problems in every other storyline that you do in the future. Like the transporter in Star Trek Into Darkness. We can get away with that because it's in an alternate reality, but if you've got a transporter that you can beam from Earth to the Klingon homeworld, that causes problems in terms of why have we still got starships.
Yeah.
We can't ever have an episode now where people can't speak to each other if we've got these stones.
Like,
unless they're just one way.
I'm not sure if it's just one way, but it's from collecting the anomalies, isn't it? So there's maybe not a lot of them, but you've got like Janeway when she became admiral and found out there's these stones that communicate. She must have thought, well, why the fuck didn't anyone from Starfleet try contacting us?
Yeah, that'd have been better. Yeah, because even if it is only one way, they could have said Captain Janeway, and yeah. Maybe we'll go with it's an anomaly. You can't replicate the technology, and it's one of a kind. And after this, it goes in a museum, like the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark or something. Nobody's allowed to touch it. We'll have to go with that. But they use it to prank call Armus, which I mean, we're going to talk about the episode in a second, but. The way Skin of Evil ends is Picard says, we're going to make this planet restricted so no one can come there. And in a way, if you want to feel sorry for Armus, you kind of can, because that's 20, 30 years ago, and he's obviously just been there on his own for the rest of this time, and he's still sitting round on his own.
In universe, it'd be probably closer to 35 years, maybe 40 years. But you don't know how long he was on his own beforehand. I got the impression he'd been on his own for thousands of years.
That's true, actually. So, yeah, maybe it's not felt like that long.
I like how he sat there going, I want someone to torture. I wish someone had come so I could torture them.
Well, you shouldn't have killed Tasha Yar, and then they wouldn't have had to quarantine the planet. So,
oh, spoilers! We're about to talk about that. You've ruined it for anyone listening who's never seen Skin of Evil.
Right. Well, let's move on to Skin of Evil then. So, yes, spoilers. This is the episode where Tasha Yar dies, and
like I've dug out the VHS, and there's actually a clue on the front cover of the VHS tape.
Yeah.
And can I get a focus on that? I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah, we can see it there.
Yeah, you can see she's got a black veil on, which is what you wear for funerals.
Yeah, I remember that one. But there's no reason she'd be wearing a black veil to her own funeral. But
well, she did appear at her own funeral.
That's very true, yeah.
But she didn't have a black veil on. She never appeared in show with a black veil on.
No, she didn't. So it's obviously a publicity picture they did.
Yeah, like, to be fair, when this came out, I was quite into the goth scene, so I thought this was quite sexy with the black veil. So I was thinking, well, where's this in all the episodes? I've not seen this.
Yeah, where's Denise Crosby gothing it up? Yeah. See, I remember this being common knowledge that Tasha Yar was going to die. And I think maybe that's because we got the show so much later than they did in America.
Yeah, so, I don't think it was common knowledge when it was broadcast.
No.
Sort of in America.
Yes,
And I think if we got Star Trek back then the way that we get it now, even just a day later, and you took away like all the social media, because we didn't have social media back then, it'd have been a shock.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, but I remember,
and it was more a shock because she was a main cast member, and we'd not had a main cast member ever die.
No, and at the time, very rarely on TV would you kill off a main cast member, not just in Star Trek. I mean, it's something. It's something that happens a lot more frequently now.
Yeah,
like you get shows like Game of Thrones and The Walking Dead and things like that, and it's expected that you're going to kill off cast members here, there, and everywhere. But it was such a rare thing in them days. you expected the cast that you had in your pilot episode, 9 times out of 10 would be exactly the same as what you had in your series finale, whether that was 2 years, 5 years, 10 years after.
It's like, fair enough, we'd had the Wrath of Khan, and we'd seen Spock die, but Spock was back amongst us all now by the time of this. He got better from being killed.
And that was in a movie. You can do things in movies you wouldn't do on TV, but yeah. So yeah, it's a big thing killing off the main
strangely,
character.
The episode before this, Symbiosis, was actually filmed after.
Yes.
Because the final scene that she films in Symbiosis, and it's right at the end, you can see her waving bye to everyone.
Yes, yeah. It's one of them weird sort of quirks of the production process that she films all the death scenes and everything, and then she's back in the next episode. And obviously, Denise Crosby would return as Yar in yesterday's Enterprise, but
it is one of those beauties of sci-fi. It's like Yar died in Skin of Evil, but a few years later she came back to life.
Yeah, of course. Why not?
And that is one of those beauties of sci-fi. Is anyone you see who's killed in sci-fi is not necessarily dead forever.
No. But yeah, it's an interesting episode in terms of particularly how it's structured and how the death of Tasha's handled. Like, I looked at the timer on the Netflix when I was watching it, and it's 12 episodes in that Tasha dies. And
12 minutes
so we're
in.
only 12 minutes in. So, you know, we're a third of the way through the episode and they've killed her off. And then the rest of the plot plays out, and Tasha's death doesn't really have a lot of bearing on the resolution of the plot or anything like that. And then obviously we come back to it for the funeral at the end, but there's not a big fanfare around it. And maybe that's the intention, that, you know, that can happen to people. You just get struck down. And if you compare it, say, to, again, spoilers for DS9 now, but the way Jadzia gets killed in DS9, again, is just a really quick, almost offhand thing.
Yeah, and
it happens, you know.
Like, wasn't this to do with the same producer as well, with Jadzia and Denise Crosby?
Quite possibly, but that's an area we won't move into, just because I don't think the full details of it are known. But if you want to read up on it, you can do. There's lots of theories out there, and
we do know that Denise Crosby asked to leave because she thought her character wasn't being used properly, and possibly not.
Yeah, she's got a point. I mean, this is
we have spoke about this, and Denise Crosby left at the end of season 1, but Marina Sirtis's Councillor Troy was so badly used throughout Next Gen.
Yeah,
as a character, and even Dr. Crusher.
Yeah. I mean, arguably, season 1, they haven't really nailed anybody's character yet. And you only have to look at the start of season 2, you know, Geordie's not even the chief engineer at this point. We get this weird guy who keeps giving his full name every time, Leland T. Lynch. All right. And, you know, so they've not fully established what the show's going to be yet. So I can see why she was frustrated, but I think any member of the cast in season 1 could have said the same thing, really, and not being out of line.
But you've also got the thing that there's maybe 2 other cast members, we're developing and we want to take you towards this and want to take you towards this. Yeah. And she's maybe not getting that.
Yeah.
But we don't know the full stories. And I don't know if the full story will ever come out.
I don't think it will. But have a look at Denise Crosby's Twitter feed and some of the things she says to some of the producers and things like that, and you'll probably get a gist of what might have gone on there. So talking about like developing characters, I know we're sort of jumping around in this one, but we're assuming most people know this episode quite well. As soon as Tasha goes, they start doing some really good stuff with Worf. Almost immediately, like they have the briefing, the scene where they're having the big meeting, and then Worf's first impulse is, I should be on the away team because effectively you need the muscle, you need the heavy. That's what would be expected of me. But then because he's been promoted to chief of security, he stops himself and he goes, no,
I can serve you better here at a tactical station.
Yeah, and I think that's really good development work for Worf, particularly in these early days of it. And probably the sort of thing that Denise Crosby would have appreciated if she'd have got a bit more attention to character like that. So I think that's really good. And did you think in the very early scene, we get this bit where Tasha's talking about she's entering this competition, like a martial arts thing, and Worf's put a bet on her. Is there almost a hint of a bit of romance between the two of them there? Like they're very sort of smiley at each other.
I don't think it's so much romance. I think it's mutual respect of each other. Because
I get
Worf's an orphan and was brought up separately. And Tasha's an orphan and sort of brought up on her own.
Yeah. And maybe that's part of the reason as well that the ensemble comes together more once Tasha's gone, because you have got two very similar characters there serving a very similar function.
Yeah.
And so arguably there's a bit of redundancy in the team dynamic there.
Yeah, I'm getting a bit of echo. No, it stopped again.
Oh, well, there's nothing coming through this end.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe I do think the ensemble is better once Tasha goes, but I do think it's a bit of a shame that they killed Tasha off.
Yeah, like I like Tasha as a character. I think it was a really good, interesting character, and I'd like to have seen the character developed a lot more.
Yeah, same with Sealer as well, where they bring her back as Sealer. We never really got a payoff for her character. Like they hinted at her a few times in season 4. Then we had Redemption. Then she turns up again in Unification. But there's no resolution to a character really at the end of that. It felt like we deserved one more Sealer story as well at some point.
I suppose it's out there. Like, there's no reason that Sealer isn't still out there.
Oh, no. And it'd be interesting to bring her back, especially now, considering what they've done with Romulus and the Romulans and things like that. So she'd be a really interesting character to pop up at some point, but we never know. So let's talk about Armus then. So obviously we get down on the planet and the whole setup is we've got the shuttle, but this big goo on the floors blocking them getting to it.
Yeah, it keeps moving.
Which is that really early CGI that they're using? Or is it more traditional animation?
I'm not sure if it's animation or CGI, but it works, and it's all you've got to do is a little bit of light off it, because it's just one shape that moves back and forward. So
yeah, it's a good effect, and I remember it being good at the time as well.
And I've spoke about this before. They did look at CGI for the Next Generation originally, and I've dug out the clip, so I'll do a plug for this weekend. Anyone watching us on the Dr. Squeeze show Saturday, we're supporting Phoenix Rehoming for Dogs. We're on at 7 o'clock, and I've got the clip lined up ready to show everyone of the early CGI footage that should have been that they were testing for Next Generation.
So I'm looking forward to that. So I've never seen that, and I'm saving it for for the broadcast, so we can have
I think
look
we'll
at
show it on our show next week, and I'll put it on the Facebook page afterwards.
Yeah. So we get the big reveal of Amos then, where he sort of rises out of the goo and everything. And you get some really bad communication between Riker and Picard. Picard says, "Number one, what are you seeing?" And he just goes, "Trouble." And it's like, oh, that's helpful, Riker.
Like, what's annoying about that is that that clip where he says trouble was used in loads of the trailers at one point.
Right.
Like early, like I've got what do you call it? Emissary DS9, and it has this really long Star Trek trailer at the start of it, sort of showing the movies and TOS and KG, and that's one of the scenes. Parts of it is where he goes trouble, but when you actually see it in its context, what a rubbish first officer!
Yeah, it's like you need to describe what's going on, Riker. But then he obviously does a good job because we get something really weird here that it's the only time I can think of they do it in TNG, where obviously after he says trouble, there was an advert break in the real world. There's an act break. And then we come back and Picard is doing a captain's log. And he says, they're down on the planet, they've encountered this being that's blocking it, it calls itself Amos. Blah, blah, blah.
And you're like, shape, one of them being humanoid.
And then we immediately cut back to Riker on the planet, and you get the sense that no time has passed. So when has Riker briefed Picard for him to be able to do this log entry with that much detail?
Yeah,
and they used to do it.
Trouble told you all that.
Exactly. But they used to do it in the original series quite a bit. And it was almost as though when we're listening to Captain's logs in TOS, they're not live. We're listening to Captain's logs after the fact, once Kirk's got all the information. Because a few times you'd have something where he'd say, Captain's log 39623, we are at this planet, but unbeknownst to us at the time, an invader had come on board the ship. And that clearly puts it in the past tense.
Well, it's that filling in the point of view of the audience where you explain to the audience what's going on, which is like in Doctor Who, that's what the companion is there for.
Yes.
That's what the companions are meant to be there for in Doctor Who, to ask questions for the Doctor to sort of explain what's going on.
And you're right, the captain's log is there to fill us in. So anybody who's forgotten what's happened over the commercial break or anyone who's missed the first part of the episode, here you go. And it does serve that function, but it's just weird in terms of when did Picard make this log and how did he know this when all Riker said was trouble? Some other things about Amos, like it's implied that he's from an alien culture and that they'd effectively shed all their evil feelings and badness, and it had created this so that they could go off and be perfect beings, blah, blah, blah. But he calls Data Tin Man, which is clearly a reference to the Wizard of Oz. So where is he getting this knowledge of Earth literature if he's an alien being that's not got any contact with humans? We get it, we get it. It's a cultural reference, and you can try and explain it and go, maybe he don't mean the Tin Man from Wizard of Oz, but how does he know what tin is? Because Data's not made of tin. So it doesn't work on any level, and it's just it's interesting.
It's a pop culture reference that we all understand, and like when Next Gen was made, we didn't look at things. I don't think any people went in depth into them the way that we do nowadays, and you got away with stuff like that.
Yeah, you did, and I do find it interesting. And I think if we're being generous, we can say, well, this implies something about Amos's backstory, that there's more story to be told there. You know, I'm not saying it's an error. I just find it interesting, the choice of words that he uses.
I suppose it depends how long ago these Titans shed the evil, but I imagine it has been thousands, if not millions of years ago of this race of Titans, because there's no sort of, who is this race of Titans? Is it the one, is it like the beings that were from Pluto's stepchildren, or the Ogarans? But all of these are ancient races.
Yeah, exactly. And that was something the original series did a lot more, having these almost godlike species. You know, obviously other Trek shows have dipped the toe in that, but original series we got it very often. Like there were quite a few.
I think Picard might have quite a lot of the godlike species in it in season 2.
It's looking that way, certainly. And Amos's powers as well. Like, so we know he can change his shape. We know that he can speak somehow without having a voice, without having a mouth. But we also see him when he's pissing about with Geordie's visor. So he flicks it off his head. So he's clearly got some sort of telekinesis thing. He moves the visor by making it teleport from one place to another. So he can do that. He can transport things around, and he transports Picard later on.
He can also absorb phaser energy.
Yeah. It can create barriers that block transporter beams and communications and everything else. So I suppose if this race of Titans were a super evolved species with superpowers, then it'd kind of make sense that Amos can do all this stuff as well. But he's quite frighteningly powerful, really.
Yeah.
But he just can't get off the planet. He obviously can't transport himself.
It's obviously localized transportation.
Yeah. And he drags Riker in at one point. And there's a really cool effect where you see sort of Riker's face screaming.
There's a really bad part. When he drags him in, I don't know if you notice, you have everyone runs over right to the edge, and Geordie, for no reason whatsoever, drops his phaser and his tricorder on the floor.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, if you watch it, he gets there, and his phaser and tricorder just drops at the floor.
Did they just drop off his costume, or?
Well, he's not carrying them beforehand, so I assume he dropped off his costume, but they've just left it in there.
Fair enough, you know.
And then when it goes back, sort of a scene or so later with Geordie, he's got his phaser in his hand again.
So I'm sure I remember you'd be able to check this on your VHSs, because I'm pretty sure I remember from the original version of it that there's a couple of shots where there's no goo in Amos's pool, as if they've not put it in. But I have a feeling that on these remasters they might have just dropped a bit of CGI into.
I need a fuse for the plug for my video recorder then, because I need a fuse. And that was like,
sure I remember.
And you know, when you go through your equipment, what can I do without? And the video recorder was the.
I do. That's why my iron's not got a plug on it at the minute. But yeah, I'm sure I remember. You can only see a bit of the pool, sort of in the corner of the screen, and Amos is stood in it. And I think they thought, no one will notice that. But yeah, I watched it a lot when I was a kid.
It's a really bad continuity error. You have all three of them. It's Data, Geordie, and Dr. Crusher run up, and you just see at Geordie's feet the phaser and the tricorder when he gets there hit the deck.
I'll look out for that one next time. So this thing with dragging Riker in, then, this is obviously another power that Amos has, that he's able to somehow keep Riker alive, despite the fact that presumably his lungs are flooded with this goo. So Amos
Andy also flattens him completely.
Yeah. So is he synthesizing oxygen and keeping Riker's body alive? And
is it a different dimension within there?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, it could be. Could be.
I wondered if it's like he's gone into a different dimension, because it's like, because Riker doesn't die, but you see the goo moves flat and it goes over the shuttle, and Riker's inside it, so it's gone completely flat and all that. So Riker, even if he's got oxygen, like basic physics say that if you're that wide and suddenly to that wide, you're squished.
Yeah, you're done for. Yeah, that's a very good point. So yeah, maybe it's. I suppose maybe he could have teleported him somewhere else, and it's all for show. He's just teleported him behind a rock somewhere, and he's breathing. I don't know. Though we end up
because Troy senses him inside, don't they?
Yes, she does. You're right. And Picard ends up confronting him then, and this is your classic Picard, where he basically just talks him to death. Like he beats him effectively by just telling him how crap he is. Like Amos is there.
Well, this is very much like in TOS, where Kirk beat every supercomputer with logic.
Yes. And yeah, you've got Amos bragging about how he's this big evil and
they've established, haven't they, that he has to get angry. Every time he gets angry, he's sort of his force field or whatever he's got over the shuttle gets lower.
Drops.
So Picard goes through the thing of making him angrier and angrier.
Yeah, and it's effectively just saying, "No, you're not all that. You've not got anything. You're just a sad little man." And and it drops it enough so they can beam him out. But as I've said before, like one of the great things about Picard is that he might not be your action hero, but he's capable of.
He did Die Hard in space.
He did do Die Hard, so he can be when called upon. But the majority of the time, he wins his battles by talking to people. And I think that's a great characteristic of Picard.
Picard is a diplomat.
Exactly. He's very, very good at it. And then we finish then with Tasha's funeral. And yeah, this is to say we've only known this character for 20 episodes or whatever at this stage. And
this is episode 22 of season 1.
Yeah.
So we've known her 22 weeks. So we've known her for nearly half a year.
That's true. And it is quite effective how they do the sequence and everything. And the fact that at the end of an episode, they take the time to have quite a long scene just reflecting on this character and spending a bit of time with the other characters to see how they react to all of it. And I do think it's really well done. Though apparently they did cut a line where she was going to say something to Data about the relationship they had. I don't know if it was just scripted and never used or whether it was filmed and removed, but yeah.
Do you know what the line was?
She was going to say something like, "Oh, and by the way, Data, it did happen," because she says it didn't happen in the Naked Now. And obviously we get a bit of a follow-up to this, don't we, in Measure of a Man, where we see that Data's got a hologram of Tasha.
Well, he kept hologram as one of his treasured possessions, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he admits that they were intimate.
Yeah. So I do really like this ending scene where she goes around and kind of talks to everyone, and Picard gets to do a bit of emoting, like, Patrick Stewart, being the actor he is, manages to be just on the brink of tears, but not quite there.
Yeah, and you see that thing where, and it's something that's carried right through into Picard, even with Picard and Data.
Yeah.
How Picard sort of schools him on his humanity when he's doing stuff. And like, this is before Data, long before Data has his emotion chip. And he goes, my thoughts are about seem selfish. That I'll miss her. And Picard goes, no, you've got the point of it perfectly.
Yeah, and that's great. And, you know, without getting too much into psychoanalysis and stuff, but Lacan wrote about what he called the second death, which is the funeral. And in that, he talks about exactly this, how funerals are designed for living people, obviously. You know, they're not, it doesn't do anything for the person who's dead, but
No.
the whole idea of a funeral is for the people there to begin accepting it and begin moving on. And, you know, and Data gets that. He's, like Picard says, he's got it. He's worked that out, you know, which is a big human thing. So, yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in this episode. I really like what they do with Worf. I like the little bit with Data there. I think Amos...
There's the interesting bit on the planet, isn't there, where he's controlling Data and he's got Data pointing the phaser at everyone.
Yes, which, you know, could be quite a frightening thing. But I think, if I'm being honest, I think Amos's voice does a lot to undermine how potentially sinister the character could be. It comes across a little bit too, what's the word? Almost a bit too sort of pompous. And
yeah,
I know there's an element of that to his character, but I think it just undermines it a little bit to have him as a truly sort of terrifying villain. Like they could have really lent into this and really made him scary.
Like, what certificate is this? This is a PG, so
yeah.
And I think that's as high as Next Gen got was PG.
Yeah, exactly. TV
so
didn't.
They were made for family viewing. So
they were made for family viewing, and even though they were first broadcast on an evening, these shows were designed for syndication, where they're going to be shown at 8
it went out as syndication, so Paramount could control.
Yeah. So, you know, they're designed to be shown at all hours of the day and everything. But I'd like to see what a modern Trek show could do with the idea of Amos and really play up the sinister aspects. But
Amos is very much a monster of the week, sort of a big bad, because he doesn't move much. He moves very little.
True.
It's a very static monster.
He is, apart from when he's slithering about in his liquid form. But I think, fortunately or unfortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, now that Lower Decks has established that he's still just sat on the planet feeling sorry for himself, I don't think we're going to get a live action return from Amos, but I'm happy to be proven wrong.
Like, I think he's just another one of those where they're looking back at something and they're making fun of it now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Amos was meant to be a big bad because he killed a crew member, but when you look back, it's a silly monster.
Very much so.
And it doesn't make a lot of sense. and especially that we never saw this. If we'd maybe come across the Titans at some point.
Yeah, that'd have been interesting.
That might have been a different matter.
See what the good side of it was, if he's the bad side. Yeah, that would have been interesting.
It's a bit like that alien species Injustice that had the ship that was cloaked watching over it all. That's never been revisited. It's like,
no, the little conspiracy aliens that
there was lots of things in season 1 that have never been revisited that had
very true.
I think in conspiracy got past a lot of things that it shouldn't have got past.
Yes, it did. See, when you're talking about family viewing, that one.
Well, it got banned for a long time, didn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, we'll have to cover conspiracy at some point in the future. So it's an interesting show. Though,
Yeah, I think when we cover conspiracy, I'll put some screenshots and video clips up of
there's
that
a lot
one.
going on in that one. So we'll wrap up there then for these episodes. We'll be back next
On
week.
Saturday.
But yes, before we're back next week, on Saturday, we're appearing as part of Squeefest, which long-term listeners will be very familiar with. Dr. Squee, who's one of the founders of Retrek, often comes on board to chat with us about episodes. He's running a 24-hour live podcast streaming event in aid of charity, and we'll be appearing on it twice, once at 7 p.m. UK time on the Saturday, and then again
when we'll be talking about Endgame.
Voyager's Endgame, so we're going to cover the finale of Voyager.
Which is
and then
quite apt, not long before Prodigy starts.
Yeah. And then we'll be having a bit of fun with a bit of a Star Trek Trumps game. It's not really explained what it is yet.
Sunday at 1 p.m. UK
Sunday
time.
at 1 p.m. UK time. So we'll see you then. If you want to get in touch with us in the meantime, come and join us on Facebook. You can tweet us at RetrekPod. You can email us retrekpod@gmail.com. And just let us know what you think. Come and join us for the live broadcast and tell us what you think about the finale of Voyager. And thanks for trekking with us this time. We'll see you next time on the Retrek.
Thank you. Bye-bye.